Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. As always, we got a pretty awesome show today, one that is long overdue thanks to DC traffic. Today, we've got Rhetorik on the show. We're going to be talking about NFTs, of course. We're going to be talking about how NFTs relate to the music space and is empowering creators and artists. So Rhetorik, thanks for being here, my friend.
I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you reaching out, and I definitely understand the woes of Nova traffic.
Yeah,
So I'll
man.
never hold that against you. My name is Rhetorik. I've been in the music industry for over a decade now, touring with Logic, the rapper, for the majority of it as a DJ. Also my own, DMV stuff there too.
Yeah.
My own independent artist. I do alternative pop, DJ for a bunch of other rappers, a lot of times with ASAP Ferg too. And I got into this space when the pandemic happened. Pandemic happened. They took away shows, which was my main source of income for my whole adult life. I was actually living in a van at the time. I bought a Sprinter van, moved out of New York City, and was traveling around. I was like, I'll just stay in this in between tours. And it was a great lifestyle until the pandemic hit. And I really had to soul search and figure out if I was going to try and pivot my career into like a streaming thing as a streaming musician. That didn't feel right. I couldn't DJ online because of, copyright, and all the labels come after you. Even my Instagram lives would be shut off because of copyright. And a little over a year ago, I stumbled into NFTs and it clicked. It felt like the moment that music changed was when Napster came out, and I feel like streaming was a band-aid for that problem of like people want music on demand, not as an album, not curated to them, not curated by a radio station. And then blockchain felt like the solution after the band-aid, and it really just did make sense. And I spent a lot of months sounding like an absolute nut, going to all my music friends and people that have streaming sites and aggregator friends and being like, this makes sense. I'm telling you, this makes. And I think at the time Top Shot hadn't even taken off, so they're like, number one, I don't know about crypto. Number two, what is an NFT? So to see the growth of the space has been insane.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, that's how I got into it.
That's awesome. I think those types of stories where it's like real and personal, and it's not like, okay, because a lot of people get into it like, oh, I'm gonna get rich, like that's the whole premise of, it was crypto before that, and now it's NFTs, and there will be other things, right, that people do just to get wealthy, and that's the thing. But for someone like you that got into it through a sort of a real life experience, like something just clicks for you, and you're like, okay, this is what I want to do to create value and get value in return. So yeah, I guess, what was your first step into the NFT space? Like, how did you learn the ropes and learn the ins and outs of it?
Honestly, just exploring. Like I found out about NFTs, but did not buy in because I also needed to make income, and illiquid JPEGs did not feel like the way. I was just like, I don't know about the stress of flipping this. I stayed in alts, I stayed in DeFi, high R&R plays, and got my feet on the ground there. And then when I felt like I had disposable capital, I had been in the Ape server, like the Discord server, just lurking since Mint. And that's when it clicked to me, like the IP rights and seeing how a community builds, how a community can build their own project while simultaneously building up the grand project was super cool to me. I miss Mint. My buddy showed it to me many times under an ETH. Didn't get it. And I finally scooped one like early July or mid-July or something like that. So I just been scoping like the clubhouse rooms when it was Fro hosting those. I wanted to build, like the collection side was secondary to me. I tweeted the other day, I was like, you guys see me post about NFTs all the time. I'm talking about ERC 721 I'm talking about fractionalizing it into 1155s.
Hmm.
I'm not talking about collecting a liquid JPEGs and getting rich. If my ape goes
Yeah.
to 100 ETH or zero, it is what it is. I'm a part of this. Um, so I feel like that's when I went, that's when I came out as an NFT person
Right
and
on.
was like, I'm public with this now, you know, like
Yeah.
I was so stoked to get my ape and put it as my PFP
It
and
makes
just
it,
finally announce.
it feels like it's like an instant community connection, those types of things. And not every project is like that, right? So you can try to emulate it, right? Where you can get, a group of folks on Twitter who immediately like and follow somebody who has a profile picture for a collection that they like. But it's really hard to emulate and build the natural organic community that, Bored Apes has built up, Cool Cats, some of those projects, even Doodles to an extent now is starting to
Yeah.
get there. There's just something magic in those that are
Mm-hmm.
really, really community focused and kind of come out of nowhere. But for you in your mind, in the music space, particularly as someone who knows the space inside and out, who's worked in it for so long, where do you see some of the actual applications for NFTs and just generally, I guess, digital rights, digital licensing, digital product in that space in music?
I think what Blau is doing is really cool
Hmm.
in splitting off his royalties. I'm supposed to get on a call with Nathan at some point. I was like, I just want to help. Like you
Yeah.
know, everything. I want to push the space forward. It's why I like Web3. I'm like, it
Hmm.
feels open. So all the open source stuff. Um, I think it's going to allow independent artists to be more autonomous. If you
Hmm.
have a small community that's really dedicated and everybody can benefit off your success more so than
Hmm.
just saying, "Hey, I was there, I was there early.
Yeah.
I was his Patreon level 1 for a year
Yeah.
before he blew up." I think I mean, you see it in the ape community where it's like, okay, this artist is going to be this.
Hmm.
If you're splitting 50-50 pub with your fan base, everybody wants you to win and they're going to figure out their own marketing scheme to help you win, you
Hmm.
know? And you can fund, you could create a DAO. I could have Rhetoric DAO where you guys decide, hey, you're on the ground, you benefit from my success. What is it? Where should my marketing wallet be spending?
Hmm.
And you get to test your fan base too. Say you put out 5 songs and you're like, these are the demos, we're going to bootstrap my project, bid on these. If one of
Hmm.
them goes for an ETH and the other ones all go for point 0.2, you probably know you're single.
Right.
So the audience testing when they have more at stake, I think is going to be extremely valuable, even beyond like the monetary benefits.
Do you think it's going to shift? Sort of there was this renaissance when we moved from you need to have studio time to now being able to have a studio in your house or your bedroom where there's just so many people who can create high quality music from a bass creation perspective. Do you think this is going to shift now, the maybe even start to localize the consumption of music again, where you have your communities and people creating in there, and you kind of feed off of each other in that smaller space?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I always loved the internet. I was on
Yeah.
forums back in the day. I grew up in southeastern Virginia.
Hmm.
The woods were in my backyard, but
Yeah.
I was on Nike Talk all the time because that's
Yeah.
the type of stuff I enjoyed. I love streetwear.
Hmm.
So the internet is kind of allowed for niches to band together no matter location and make something strong out of it. So yeah, I think naturally over time you're not going to have to be a massive, honestly, you probably won't have to be a touring artist to be successful. Look at Spotty.
Yeah.
Spotty played off his punk. He's not touring. He's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
So
I think it's powerful because I feel like, I have a couple of friends who maybe are not like super large artists, but people that I know that have toured, and the process is like, we need to tour so that we can make some more music so that we can then tour again. Or if we stop, we're done. Like we have it's
yeah.
day job time, right? That's it.
Mhm.
And this space could potentially create an environment where maybe it's not passive. Like you still have to keep creating. You might still want to tour or do like live stream shows, but to free artists up to actually spend creative time for larger portions of the year, when before they didn't have a choice but to maybe over tour just to pay for that time. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, full transparency, a million plays on Spotify is 4 grand,
Yeah.
and it
I
costs a
mean,
lot more than 4 grand in marketing to get a million plays on Spotify,
yeah.
and it's all luck. So
Hmm.
I had, that was another thing too, is I saw some of my touring friends. They're like, I'm almost out of savings. I don't know what to do. Just taking regular jobs.
Yeah.
Our tour manager, who's done, he was supposed to go out with Doja Cat before the pandemic. He
Hmm.
was a manager at a grocery store just for like side income, because he's
Yeah.
fine, but it's not. It's like it really is this perpetual lifestyle that they pushed on us to just
Hmm.
churn until you burn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is going to. I mean, you're going to have a spectrum. You're going to have
Hmm.
the people that just churn out songs all the time and they make that type of income. And then you'll have the artists where they have a base that really invests in them, and they get to take their time. They get to be a Kendrick of the internet, you know,
Yeah.
and create their big piece, and that's their big piece, and then they go away, and then they create, and
Yeah.
you get to set the rules. It's not like a label anymore, or eventually I envision it to not be like a label anymore.
Do you see potentially, you mentioned the idea of DAOs, right? Even for individual artists, do you see a world where you basically have like almost like community labels, where it's like artists that the people really like are the ones that get support, and capital gets thrown behind, and it's not one sort of big monolithic entity that does this all?
Yeah, I was texting my buddy today because he was like, I was telling, he was like, oh, we gotta catch up. And I was like, oh, I have this meeting, this meeting, this meeting. He was like,
Yeah.
when are you gonna make music? It's like, honestly, I went on a hiatus, but I told him, I was like, DAOs are gonna be the new labels. You have
Yeah.
this group of people that are super early on all these artists, and they don't have to jump through traditional industry hoops and make those connections, and they have the financial backing to push
Hmm.
this. What? That's
Yeah.
so cool, like
No brainer.
fans. Yeah, it's, you do these shows, and we do these shows all the time, and it really is, it's like the fans are the biggest, but you're the reason that we're here. You say it so many times, and it's
Hmm.
true. And now it's time to like pay it forward to fans, and
Yeah.
kind of give them strength, give the anon strength in this industry. So it's
Yeah.
it's a, it's a better relationship.
Well, it's like this shift in, like I think about crypto and NFTs and where we're moving. Like, people talk about the metaverse, which I think is rather not a place, but more so like a societal shift in mindset, I guess, where, ownership is important and available to everyone. Like, you can own things inside of a game for real. So the time you're
Yeah.
investing is not just being dissolved into thin air. You can have an ownership interest in a smaller group of artists and creators that make video or music or whatever that you really like, and your connection is a lot closer, rather than having kind of vacuous, very separate, distant relationships with like 50. I
Yeah.
think that that's hopefully what the future is like. Maybe not everyone shares my view, but
Yeah, I was like, I think I got sucked into this space because you feel like the founding fathers again, in like a micro way, or maybe a macro way. We'll see how it builds. But
yeah.
where it's like there's hyper formation of small democracy. There are rugs. There aren't really rules, so you have to
Hmm.
like enforce community rules, and like it happens so fast that you have to gather together and formulate this new structure, because you can't Google the answers, because we're coming
Yeah.
up with them in real time, and it's
Yeah.
so cool to be a part of. And I really can't wait to see musicians that have had to kind of act as a business at the same time as being an artist to be successful. I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Hmm. Without a doubt. I mean, here's a question for you, I guess, anecdotally, having, you mentioned you're on tour with Logic, you've worked with several other artists, and I think now you start to see more not only artists in the music space, but you have celebrities like talk show hosts and all these other people now getting into not only crypto but also NFTs and vice versa. When did you ever see folks in the industry talking about this stuff, maybe behind closed doors before it became more mainstream lately?
Um, like honestly, well, to be fair, I've been kind of a hermit since the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've sold a van, got a house. I stay in this basement.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, I every time I was, Bitcoin and Ethereum,
Yeah.
occasionally you'll get somebody that knows another massive L1, but beyond that, no. NFTs were kind of, what is that? Oh, is that, the Procreate art that everybody makes and then it's a Ponzi, the Procreate
Yeah.
Ponzi. But no, I feel like there's been a crazy uptick very recently, like
Yeah.
very recently.
It happened fast. And I
Yeah.
also like I look at your Twitter, right? Which I presume is probably like it's the main place where you engage with the community, I assume.
Hmm.
You know, it's amazing how fast somebody can build up like a sort of like build themselves up as a leader in this space, right? Like not even with purpose. It's just like having opinions that people really want to hear and encouraging people to create and do cool stuff. That's what I think is so interesting about this, because someone who just likes this can become a leader of a community or really have a loud voice in the space.
Yeah. And something that I didn't realize too when I went to NFT NYC is, you ask somebody that's done very well in NFTs,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, did you see that new DeFi protocol that came out? And they're like, what?
Yeah.
I thought that the natural progression was, I like Bitcoin, I like Ethereum, now I like crypto, now I dabble in, you know, micro cap, now I love DeFi, now,
Yeah.
and NFTs are cool. But we have like a whole sector of like just NFT people, and seeing the growth of that even since May, since mint of apes, you know, is nuts. I mean, from
Yeah.
I was following people with 1,000 followers, they got 100,000 followers now,
It's
and they're a real
wild.
voice.
It's wild.
Like,
And you look at people that were total like not even in this space at all. Like didn't even like crypto at all.
mhm.
Are brought have been brought in by this. It's like a whole other niche in and of itself. And I think it's cool that how big this space has become, because like 10 years ago, I'm like trading paper trading cards for Bitcoin, right? Like that
Mhm.
was the whole culture basically. It was like the
Yeah,
cypherpunks and trading card people.
yeah,
And now it's like there's all these subcultures and it's just mind blowing.
yeah. To think, ironically enough, I found out about Bitcoin because I wanted to get a real copy illegally of like Fruity Loops or Ableton or something like
Yeah.
that. And my buddy was like, "Oh, you can buy it with Bitcoin." And then my roommates were like, "I don't know about that." You
Yeah.
know, somebody show up at the apartment, 2012, 13, one of the two. I don't know. Yeah, man, it's nuts. It's really nuts to see the hyper growth. I'm very curious to see what happens when we get like a nice calm moment, but I also
Mhm.
don't know when that's going to be because everybody's very interested in it. Um, we're also not that categorically diverse yet, I don't think.
I agree.
You know, I think everything is an NFT, and when you tell somebody NFT, they're like, "Oh, the monkey picture."
Hmm. Yeah.
So
It'll
I
take some time
think,
to shake out.
yeah.
So that's, I think, a great sort of path right there, that line of conversation. Where do you think we are, if you could envision? I mean, 3 years is like a light year away. Like
Yes.
even like one calendar year from now, like next winter, where do you think this space is, maybe like in general, NFT world only?
I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't, because it's crazy to see like NFTs and now apparently metaverse projects
Hmm.
being like a hedge
Yeah.
versus volatility in the market. You look at Sandbox and you're like, what? You
Yeah.
know? In the NFTs, as soon as ETH goes down, I feel like everybody just scrambles to get into NFTs. And I I don't know if I can predict a year from now. I'd
Mhm.
like not I don't wish it upon anything, but like your first baptism in crypto, you're a much different person
Mhm.
afterwards. Very curious to see how the space is after that. But I think a year from now, the biggest difference is going to be diversity. I think people will have a better understanding at that point,
Mhm.
because you can only Ponzi for so long, before people catch on. They're like,
Yeah.
I want something else. I want something more in this. Um, I mean, they're all the ohm forks would argue against that. But
Right.
yeah, I just see it as being more diverse. I really do. People are really obsessed with music NFTs right now. There's all of a sudden on my Twitter was music NFTs, music NFTs. I can't wait for music NFTs, and everybody's retweeting and retweeting and you got Euler beats and you got audio glyphs and you got all these things.
Mhm.
A bunch of I know Grammatic's coming out with something soon, and then on the rap side, Dylan and Spotty. But it's not. There aren't that many, you
Mhm.
know so I think we'll see a lot more of the different niche categories, and we'll be able to discern um, what is what in this space, like as a broader, because there are a lot of new people coming in right now. So those
Mhm.
people will kind of get, um, that everything is different. They're not just all cartoon Ponzi's.
Yeah.
At least I hope.
It's not a money printer, and it's also not
Yeah.
everything's not low effort garbage, right? It's like there's
Right.
some in between.
Yeah.
Great. So I think my last question for you, and this is, I guess you could qualify sort of like a final lightning round. Does Rhetoric own virtual land?
Honestly, I didn't get it yet. I've loafed on it many times. I've replied to somebody on Twitter, um, because of the like when Sandbox was about to make that. As soon as Mark announced Metaverse, I was like, "This is a
Hmm.
great buy." I went to my
Yeah.
Telegram group. Man, I'm really looking at Mana and Sand right now. Should I get Sandbox land? I feel like I should. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Explosion. I'm like, I'm just trying to discern, do I really need to pay for land next to something when I can just boop to new places? I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like it's a good advertising opportunity for big brands, but for me as an individual, if I have a couple plots, you know,
Yeah.
out in nowheresville, it doesn't matter. Everybody teleports. So no, not right now.
Word.
But what's funny is I shill everybody on it, or like the big people that I'm helping get into this space. I'm like,
Yeah.
first things first, we're going to get you land. It's going to be your branded space, and we're going to create a virtual experience for your brand within that space, and it's going to be something. So
Solid.
no, I don't.
I'm sure you'll end up being a virtual land baron one day. But I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
to be honest with you, I'm more comfortable in the suburbs anyway. So I'll be in the
yeah,
digital suburbs the same way I do in real life.
yeah, yeah.
And then final question for you, my friend. What is your, like, in terms of fungibles, right? We've talked mostly about NFTs. Are you dabbling in the world of fungible tokens, just general cryptocurrencies that you're fond of, mainly blue chips or altcoins? Where are you at?
Um, I'm I'm a degen. I'm deep in the alts.
There you go, man.
Um, God, what am I looking at right now? I've just been looking at what's been holding up in this
Mhm.
dip. Um, my alpha my alpha here is that I'll go in to the CoinGecko categories and see what holds up or what really rockets down during volatility like this,
Mhm.
and kind of go back from there and make my choices. Something cool that I've been looking at. Ohm's on a nice dip right now. Merit Circle. I've been researching into Merit Circle. So
Sweet. Do
yeah,
with that
that's
what you will.
yeah.
But
This is
yeah,
definitely not fun. I am looking
yes,
into it.
yeah,
Trust me, I haven't even told my friends where to delegate their money. I'm just like, this is exciting and this is why I like it. You know what I
yep.
mean?
That's
I've copy traded many of people when I started in crypto, and it leaves you wrecked, and
hmm
nobody blame but yourself. So
legitimately.
I just think it's interesting, and watching all the fractionalized DAOs do what they're doing is cool. The Constitution DAO is really cool right now that I'm looking at. I'm not invested in any of those.
Mhm.
I like I said, I got into the space because I feel like I'm witnessing like a hyper growth version of founding fathers of this new democratized state or whatever it is, as macro as you want to think. And at the same time,
Yeah.
it moves as fast as my ADD brain loves consuming.
Yeah. It's a match made in heaven then.
Yeah.
But yeah, now anyone who's watching, as always, NFTs, like we've mentioned actually several times today, right? Most NFTs are illiquid one-way doors, right? You buy them, you need to know that what you spend on those are very likely ETH that you will never get back, or it would be very difficult to get back. So you just have to be very careful. Same with fungibles. There's lots of risk in the space, but focus on what you think solves a real problem, where the community feels right to you, and really be smart about it, right? Have a plan. I repeat this every
Yes.
time. So
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, and I don't even like the people that are like, invest what you think you could lose. Just
yeah.
invest in something that you trust that they're going to keep developing and going
Mhm.
in a direction that you like. That's all it is. Whether, invest in something that you don't have to sit there and do
Stare.
this right there,
Yeah, and watch the chart.
that you don't need. Yeah. You don't need to look at supply and demand, nothing. Just
Yeah.
feel nice,
Yeah.
invest in the future.
What you believe. And I think that on that note, that positive note, I think we can call it a night on this one. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat. It was great hearing your
Uh,
philosophy on stuff. And yeah, let's do it
Thanks for
again.
having me. Yeah, 100%. We'll circle back when there are some new developments in this music space. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's going to move fast.
Yeah, it might be sooner than we think. But thank you so
Yeah.
much to everyone who's watching. As always, if you got questions, you got comments, leave them in the comments section below. Make sure you give Rhetorik a follow on Twitter. I'll leave that linked in the description below, as all those YouTubers do and say all the time. Thanks, everyone. Have a great one, and cheers.